Umbrella. D is for face. V for base. W is for wheel.
Hello, please mute yourself, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome from Sneak Rehab Foundation and welcome from me. I'm Harshali Kharche. I'm the founder and the director of Sneak Rehab Foundation. We are basically based in Nagpur. SNEAK is Special Needs Integration Center and rehab is rehabilitation, empowerment, health and advocacy and belief. We are dedicated to focus on these areas for special needs parents. Our vision is to empower parents of children with special needs by ensuring their peace of mind, satisfaction, and positivity with respect to their child's overall development. To sensitize and educate the society about the challenges faced by special needs parents, to provide an appropriate perspective to the parents about treatments, therapies, approaches in favor of child's development. Also, to bring better clarity about myths, beliefs, and misunderstanding with regards to issues, disorder, and dysfunctions. Our motto, excuse me, please mute everyone. Here our motto is to set the foundation of parents' body, provide resolution to the challenges faced by parents, children with special needs. So we have to get united together to face these challenges. Today we are here with most commonly problematic topic like behaviors. So we are going to talk about understanding why behaviors occurs and the way to prevent them and some behaviors at home only. For that we have Shivani Pandit with us. She is the founder of Samarthya Foundation in USA. She is a special educator also. I welcome her on this SNIC platform to deliver this lecture. Over to you, Shivani ma'am.
Thank you so much, Harshali. I will just share my screen now. Okay, welcome to everybody. Just one second. All right, welcome to all the parents here. Thank you so much, Harshali, for the introduction. I'll take just a second talking about introducing myself a little bit and Samarthya Foundation. That is the foundation that I currently run. I'm a special educator, as Harshali mentioned. I've been working in the field of disabilities for the past 25 plus years. I have worked with children with intellectual disabilities and autism in particular. Particularly, my background has been in working with children between the ages of birth to 6, which is the early intervention years. I'm very passionate about early identification and early intervention of children on the spectrum. I have been working in the United States for the past 25 years, like I said, and about 4 years ago, I started my own nonprofit organization called Samarthya Foundation, which is registered in the US, but it has a particular purpose to deliver services to children with disabilities and their families in India. Harshali, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of noise, background noise coming. I think if all the participants can mute themselves, I'd really appreciate that. Thank
Yes,
you.
I muted everyone now. Yeah, you can go ahead.
So for Samarthya, from Samarthya's perspective, I just want to share, I will not take too much time on that. Here is our website, samarthya.org. I would love for all of you to visit the website, see what we do, connect with me, subscribe to our email list. What we try to do is really work on 3 pillars, which is public awareness, teacher training, and parent training and support. Because, I really have a particular passion to work with parents and families in providing them with some strategies and tools that they could use at home. And so today I'm very thankful to be here in collaboration with the SNCC Rehab Foundation and Harshali. And so here we go. We are going to today talk about really understanding behaviors, first of all. And typically what happens is that when we talk about behaviors, or if a parent comes to me and says, my child has a lot of problem behaviors, there is almost an understanding or a need or a desire to just want to take care of the behaviors. Like we just want the behaviors to go away and we just don't want our child to have any problem behaviors. But what is most important actually is to step back a little bit, understand why behaviors happen. What do we call challenging behaviors or problem behaviors? What do we mean in education by that? And through research, there's a lot of evidence behind how can we potentially prevent some of these behaviors by working, by modifying the environment at home or helping parents understand some key strategies that I'm going to talk about today. And then comes the final part, which is the addressing of the problem behaviors. And addressing of the problem behaviors is something that is that could probably take me every day talking to you for the next 2 months, and it still wouldn't cover, all the content. So particular strategies for challenging behaviors can be given when we observe a child, when we really understand a child's needs and why the behavior is happening. So I may not be able to get to that level of like detail as far as addressing behaviors, but what I really want to focus on today, and I hope if there is one thing you can take away from today's session, is understanding why behaviors happen, which is what we call function of a behavior. And I'll explain what that means, in a little bit. And then what are some of the things that you can do at home to actually prevent the behaviors? There's not a lot of conversation that happens about prevention, or how do we make sure that the environment is set up, the learning environment is set up, whether it's in a classroom or in the home, in a way that we are preventing the behaviors. Okay. So that's going to be the of my session today, is those two parts. All right. I'm going to start with this particular quotation that is absolutely perfect, and I believe in this. So if a child doesn't know how to read, what do? We teach them, correct? If a child doesn't know how to swim, what do? Do we just put a child in the pool and expect them to learn to swim? No, we teach them, correct? If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we have standards, we go from fundamentals all the way, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. We're not going to put a kid in the car and say, now here you go, here is a vehicle, figure it out, right? But if a child doesn't know how to behave, what do? Do we teach? I want you all to think about this just for a second, from all of your perspectives. If a child doesn't know how to behave, it's not that they are not behaving correctly. They don't know how to behave in a particular situation. Whether they have the diagnosis of autism or not. If there is inappropriate behavior, do we teach them? Do we teach them appropriate behaviors? Or what do? Or do we punish them? Okay, so why is it that we can't finish the last sentence as automatically as we do with others? All the top 5 sentences, we teach. For everything, when we have a child, we're going to teach them that particular skill. I want you to remember this after today's session, that behavior is something just that, is that once we understand what a behavior is, what is the behavior that my child is exhibiting, what is the function of that behavior? In other words, why is that behavior happening? Then we have to figure out how do we teach them appropriate behaviors. So this is sort of the fundamental of today's session. And I really hope that you all are paying attention to these words of teach versus punish, because what happens typically is that when a child has problem behaviors, the automatic response becomes punishment, whether it's in a classroom or in a home setting. So today's session, I hope, will get you the message of prevention and teaching. When we teach, we prevent. Okay, when we teach a particular skill to a child, we are going to prevent not all behaviors. I'm not saying that, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that every single behavior is going to be prevented and that the child will never have any problem behaviors. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that when we think from a teaching perspective, when we have that perspective in our mind that we are going to teach, then a lot of the behaviors can be hopefully prevented. And if you're going to have many behaviors that are preventable, that can be prevented, then you have a much easier journey ahead of you for those behaviors which you maybe couldn't prevent or have become challenging behaviors. And now we need to do something much more, intervention perspective, that is the ABC data analysis, that I'm going to touch very briefly about that. So that's kind of the focus of today's session. So what is a challenging behavior? We don't, problem behavior is one term, but a better term to be used, which is nowadays used in research and in evidence-based practice, is challenging behaviors, behaviors that are challenging. Why do we call them challenging? Is that any pattern of behavior that interferes with or is at risk of interfering with learning is what we call a challenging behavior. Anything that becomes a challenge towards learning is a challenging behavior, or any behavior, any pattern of behavior that basically leads to a child being unable to have good social interactions with peers or adults. So these are the two sort of main factors where we decide that, okay, this is a challenging behavior and we need to do something about this. So in other words, we can define challenging behavior as something based on its effect. What does a challenging behavior do? It interferes with learning, optimal learning for whatever age that may be. It can also interfere with good social communication, social interaction skills with same age kids or with adults. All right. So what are challenging behaviors? I'm sure you all have a list of the, your own children's challenging behaviors, or something that you've seen or you've read about. They typically come under this category of either non-compliance behavior, whether the child is not following instructions, not working with the tasks that you're giving them. We call that non-compliance, not being compliant, not listening. There could be challenges of physical aggression, aggressive behaviors. We can have meltdowns, which could be temper tantrums or meltdowns. Children can show self-injurious behaviors. Self-injurious behaviors could be biting, harming oneself, banging on their own head. That comes under the self-injurious behavior category. Withdrawal, many stereotypic behaviors, which could be vocal or motor stereotypies that you may already have experience with your child. So behaviors can be in any of these categories, and it could depend. Sometimes children, I have seen the children that I have worked with in my career, I'm talking particularly about children with autism, is that you could have a particular behavior in, let's say, non-compliance, and then behavior we work on, it goes away, but you could have it in something else. So the behaviors can come and go, the behaviors can look differently, the behaviors may look differently as a child ages. So it's not static. So it's not that once you have non-compliance, that's it. It really depends on the child. And that's why it's very difficult to give any sort of specific strategies to a parent unless we really understand the child and the child as a whole, okay, not just from a behavior perspective. So before what is part of understanding the behavior is also what could be contributing. We are going to talk about what does a function of a behavior mean. The ABC data analysis. I don't know, many of you may have heard of it. Antecedent behavior consequence data. Maybe many of you have done it for your children. I don't know if you have, you can start, sharing in the chat box. But before we even get to the function of the behavior and what might be causing a particular child to have a particular behavior, we have to really be comprehensive in our approach to understanding the child as a whole, not just take out behavior. If we just say, oh, he hits a lot, and we forget everything else, we just focus on the hitting, we are not going to be able to figure out good strategies that would work for him. So what are these other factors? There could be medical issues that we must rule out. There could be things like body aches, the child having stomach ache, the child could be having toothache. If a child is non-verbal, their inability to communicate with you, some kind of an internal pain that they are going through, sort of falls into this medical issue. So before we do any kind of analysis or figuring out the strategy, these are some of the things that you as parents and us as educators have to be mindful of. ruling out any medical issues. There are sometimes sleep issues that children go through, and they may not be sleeping well at night at all, and that could have its own impact on the next day and how the child behaves and how cranky the child might be. So is sleep the root cause? Is there something that is happening with the child as far as the diet goes, the gastrointestinal issues? Is there something with the diet? Is there something with food allergies? Is there something with the stomach? Again, falls sort of in the medical issue. These sleep and gastrointestinal fall under the medical issue. But this is something I feel we must consider and pay attention to. There could be family issues, maybe you have moved to a new city, maybe the child is in a new colony, maybe there are many things that impact a child's behavior, not just a child's behavior, think about it, our behaviors as well. All of these things would apply to us, correct? If I had a headache constantly every day and I didn't address the headache, I am going to have some kind of a behavior the next day at work. It could be that I'm withdrawn. I'm not interested in working. I'm not paying attention to what my boss is saying. There's a reason. If I address the reason, my behavior goes away. So if I move to a new city, I don't have any friends and I'm a little nervous going to school, everything is new. At that time, those are big transitions in a child's life. At that time, a child may exhibit more problem behaviors than usual. So knowing some of these things, some of these concerns are very obvious. These are very obvious things. But what happens oftentimes is that when you think about the behavior as in isolation, just behavior, बहुत problem behaviors है बच्चे को, अगर हम उतना ही सोचेंगे, and we don't broaden our perspective, beyond that, then we will miss out on all these things. We will miss out on the key so-called obvious things that are there for us to consider. So let us say now we remember now that these are some of the things we must think about. Write it down. Think about the changes that may have happened in your life. Family issues, health issues, sleep issues, food issues. Are there changes? Are there things that you can pinpoint? For that, you need to observe, the child or go back and think about what changes might have happened for this particular behavior. All right. And this is a step-by-step I'm going. So we will eventually get to the function of the behavior and you'll be able to understand how all of this fits. But this is a prerequisite. By prerequisite, I mean, we have to start here. We have to comprehensively understand the whole setup, not just the child, is the family as well. Right? Maybe a parent has lost their job and they are at home and things have changed. Suddenly the routine has changed. Pandemic. I mean, a pandemic is a very big, obvious reason where children may be reacting. Maybe they're stressed out, inability to go out and play, being closed indoors all the time, being always in front of a computer. That's a huge issue that has suddenly come up in our children's lives, right? But we must start from these very basic and very obvious facts. But I want you to always have this in the back of your mind when you are dealing with a challenging behavior for your child. Okay, have I checked these off? Have I thought about this? Is there any connection? All right. This part I am very, very particular. I'm extremely passionate about. In all my years of experience, I find that because there are challenging behaviors and the behaviors are difficult, I get it. The behaviors can be very difficult to manage for the parents. And they can be isolating. They can isolate you because the child, you're not able to take them out, or the child is exhibiting behaviors in the mall, whatever the case may be. It is possible for parents to fall into this notion that my child is difficult. I've heard parents say this to me, that she's just very difficult. She's just very stubborn. She's just very naughty. She just doesn't want to listen to me. Okay, now I want you to think about all these statements. In all these statements, we have made everything about the child. It's very important for you to understand that we have to separate the child from the behavior. The focus has to be on the behavior. The behavior is the problem. The behavior is the challenge. The behavior is difficult, not the child. The child is not being difficult because they want to be difficult with you. The child is difficult because there's a problem that is difficult. So this separation, I think, can be extremely helpful to understand that it's the behavior that may be difficult and inappropriate. Okay. But if you separate it from the child and you think about it objectively. If you start to see that behavior objectively, then you will be able to maybe understand why that behavior is happening and what can be the strategies to address it. The minute we mix it up with the child and say, this child is a naughty child, this child is a problem behavior child, ये मैंने बहुत बार सुना है, that the child becomes the problem. Think about it, the child is not the problem. And I will show you through my examples of, the ABC analysis, some of the examples as to why the child is not the problem. The child is certainly exhibiting problem behaviors. Yes, 100%. They are doing certain things that are interfering in their learning. Yes. They're doing certain things that are interfering in their ability to have social interactions with their friends. Yes. They're doing certain things that are interfering in their ability to have relationships with, maybe dadi, nani, cousins. Yes. But they're exhibiting behaviors. They are not the problem. The behavior is the problem. I sincerely hope that you will, if there is one take-home message that you will take from this session today, is that focus on the behavior. We have to see the behavior objectively, and we have to understand the context in which that behavior is happening. Then we understand the function, as in, kyun ho raha hai? What is the purpose of this behavior? Then we can start to talk about, the different strategies. I hope, if this is something that is interesting to you, if this is something that makes sense to you, please put it down in the chat box. I'd love to read your responses later on. Okay, so now with that, we did some of the fundamental work, which was looking at the behavior as in the larger context of the family, environment, health, medical, illnesses, new school, whatever the case may be. And then we are going to say behavior is behavior. We are going to look at it objectively. We are going to understand it objectively and help the child with the behavior. So before we talk about how do we address challenging behaviors, let's spend some time about strategies to prevent behavioral issues. How do we do this? We do this by focusing on teaching. You remember the first slide said, for everything we teach, for behaviors we don't, we just punish. So how are we going to, what are the strategies to prevent challenging behaviors? We do that by focusing on teaching. What do we teach? Teaching communication skills that they may lack. That leads to a problem behavior, a kind of a problem behavior. I'll show you some examples. We need to teach them appropriate behavioral expectations and rules. That is not happening. When that is not happening in the home environment or in the classroom, you can understand how the child can have problem behaviors. We are not teaching them good communication skills, appropriate communication skills, correct? Appropriate behavioral expectations and rules. Teaching them to request for things that they want. So things, for example, a child who's nonverbal doesn't know how to ask for things, that request for things that they want is going to lead to problem behaviors. If we teach them that communication skill, it will replace the problem behavior. Okay, this is where the whole understanding of the behavior and the function comes into play. Teaching them to make a choice and giving them the power to choose an activity or a routine. Choice is a very big thing. I'm going to spend a lot of time on that. I don't see a lot of parents being aware of this particular strategy. It's actually an evidence-based strategy, teaching children to make a choice, requesting, okay? So I think that when we create a solid learning environment at the home with the help of, let's say, visual supports to ensure that the child can follow through a routine and that they can benefit from a structure in the day. So that helps not only in the learning, it is also going to prevent challenging behaviors. That's the beauty of some of these strategies. What I'm going to share with you is not anything like, rocket science. It's not something that's brand new. It's not like some kind of a magic trick. But I want you to see what I'm trying to share here is that some of the techniques that we're going to talk about are excellent for learning, are excellent for teaching children independence in their activities of daily living, are excellent for teaching children play skills and leisure skills. Those are the exact same things that are going to actually prevent challenging behaviors in the day as well. They're not separate. Because like I said, a child's behavior is not separate. It's not key, here is the child and there is the behavior. It's all part of development. So when we understand that, the things that you're going to try for preventing the challenging behaviors are going to help the child overall in learning at home. So it's actually an excellent way to think about it. So what are some of these strategies that help prevent challenging behaviors at home? things that are usually not present. I find that in families where there are a lot of challenging behaviors, little bit here and there, hota rehta hai, kuch na kuch ho raha hai, kabhi ye, kabhi wo. Some of these key fundamental things may be missing. Okay, now whatever I'm talking about, if you are already doing this at home, I would love for you to share it on the chat box, and share with other parents how it's helping you. You know, if you have a visual support, like if you have a visual schedule that you're already following for your child, tell us how it's helping. Tell us how are you able to see the connection between having that visual schedule and child not having a lot of problem behaviors. Okay, if that's something like that, I would love to hear from you. But what are these strategies? Like I said, structuring the home environment is a very obvious and very sounds like a very simple thing to do, but it's actually evidence based. By evidence based, I mean there are a lot of research studies that have come out, particularly for children with autism, because we know they are visual learners, a lot of them, and that way of concrete, designing a routine which is visual that the child can see, and having a structure to a day. So having a time when the child is doing some homework, maybe some physical activity, some daily routine chores like helping out in the kitchen, maybe doing the laundry. There's a daily flow to a structure, to a routine that actually reduces the child's anxiety levels, that actually reduces problem behaviors. This we know. This we have seen in research. So it may seem very simple, but if this is something that you're not following, or you are inconsistent, I think that's another thing. You may have a schedule, you may be following a sort of a structured approach in the day, but if there is no consistency, you may still see problem behaviors. I think so. The key is to think about what you're doing, think about where you could improve. Maybe there is more consistency required, maybe there is no visual schedule, maybe that might help your child. So I just want you to today think about all the ways in which you could make some adjustments to your home schedule, your daily routine. So we have visual schedules, we have communication aids. I'll show you what those are. Then we talk about daily routines. We talk about clear expectations and rules that we can teach to our children. This could be verbally, this could be through pictures, this could be through pointing, this could be through a visual calendar. It could be anything that works for the child. As long as our expectations and our rules are clear, we are able to teach them how to make a choice. We are able to teach them how to take a break. This helps all in during the daytime. And then we'll talk a little bit specifically about transition supports. Transition is anytime you move from one activity to the other, it's called a transition. And oftentimes, most of the challenging behaviors come in this transition, which could be park to home. They have gone to the park, they're really having fun, they're really enjoying, and you say, chalo ghar jana hai. Immediately you're going to see tantrums, you may see some falling on the floor, you may see the child crying, the behaviors, right? I'm sure all children have done this at some point or the other, but for some children, it becomes a problem behavior. It becomes something that happens every single time. So that transition from going from park to home is very difficult for parents. Now that transition what can we do? There are some visuals, there are some strategies that we can use to teach a child. Here, the focus is not on what you're using. The focus is not on a particular tool. The focus is on the idea that we have to teach the child that what is a transition, what does it look like when the transition is going to happen, and how do I want you to, what is it that you're going to do? So we'll talk about that a little. So these are the sort of main three ways in which I have divided up. I've put them in three buckets, the behaviors that we see in different areas during the day. And if we sort of work on these things as a whole, you can prevent a lot of the behaviors. Again, like I said, you can't maybe prevent all of them. And the behaviors that are already there, you may need a specific behavior plan to address that particular need for the child. But while we are doing that, I think this is critical. I don't want this to be missed for any child, for any family. This also falls under a good learning environment, simply. Even if you want to think about behavior problems, even if you said ki, but isse behavior to solve nahi hoga, but isse learning ho raha hai, correct? We want the child to learn. So even if you don't think this is going to help for behaviors, this is going to help for learning. And that's very important. And learning connected to behavior is going to happen. And I'll show you how. I hope by now you guys are really with me and really able to get with what I'm trying to say here. Anybody has any examples that they'd like to share as I'm talking that you have experienced with your children, please, I would love to have it on the chat box. I think it's a great way to share with other parents your successes. Okay, so first thing is we are going to talk about the routines, and I'll show you a few ways in which we can look at a visual schedule. We will talk about transitions. In helping a child learn about transitions, we talk about a first then board. I don't know if you've seen it, if you've heard of a first then schedule, first then. We also talk about timers, the use of timers. It's oftentimes a very simple strategy. It's very effective, but parents may not be aware of a strategy like this. We talk about reinforcers, the use of reinforcers. We talk about a choice board. What is a choice board? And then we talk about how do we teach communication to some basic communication skills to prevent challenging behaviors, which could be like requesting or making a choice. So this could be a verbal teaching for children who are verbal, or it could be picture exchange, so creating pictures and teaching the child to, exchange that. Could be one. We talk about teaching a break, that I want a break, again through visuals. But this also needs a little bit more behavioral training in many ways. Teaching communication skills, again, requesting. We do this through a visual schedule, or we do it through a first then card or a choice board. Again, these are the strategies that we could use to reduce challenging behaviors and transitions, reduce, okay? And this could be used at home. This could be again carried over through to school. So for example, a first then strategy could be, first story time, then park time. If the child is highly motivated by wanting to go to the park and we want them to also do the story, we could do that. Or we do first lunch, then shopping, or we say first, home and then something else. So the idea is to identify what the child, likes, what the child is motivated by, and then training them, teaching them those skills. In choice boards, we help the child learn to make a choice. So we start with just two things. We know the child's favorite things are, and we help them learn to choose between, let's say, an apple and a banana, or whatever they want, and give them the choice, and help them understand that they can make a choice. And eventually that kind of teaching gets into a way that a child can make a choice about the particular activity they don't want to do, maybe. So for example, a child doesn't want to do puzzles, and that's usually the time he's going to maybe have a temper tantrum or have a problem behavior. But we want to have a schedule where there's an activity time. Maybe you can pick up an activity that he likes to do. So if it's not puzzles, it could be ball play, or if it's not puzzles, it could be a story reading, or if it's not story reading, it could be puzzles, whatever it is. And you give them the choice, you have them choose, what would you like to do? And when the child chooses that activity of their motivation, of their interest, those problem behaviors won't show up. But if you just put a puzzle in front of a kid and say, we are going to do puzzle now because it's puzzle time, then guess what? First of all, we are not going by what they like. A point here I forgot to mention, actually, that is actually very important, is that any teaching we do for children, any child for that matter, but in particular for children with intellectual disabilities and autism, is that we follow the child's lead. By that I mean, we follow the child's interests. So for that, we have to know what the child likes, we have to know what the child enjoys, we have to know what the child is motivated by. So we are not forcing the child to do a set of activities that we have decided for them. Typically, this is what happens, right? You will agree with me, is that we say, here is a puzzle, khatam karo. Wo coloring hai, khatam karo. Wo activity hai, abhi karna hai. There is no understanding of the child's interest, what motivates the child. First of all, I think right there's a problem. Right there, you're going to have a problem behavior, because we are going to go by our interest, not the child. So right away, you're going to have a problem behavior. Secondly, we are not giving the child a way to choose between the two activities. If the puzzle is an activity you want to do for learning purposes, maybe he chooses the car puzzle versus the fruit puzzle. Maybe the fruit puzzle, fruits mein usko interest nahi hai, but cars mein usko bahut interest hai. So if you put a car puzzle in front of him and you ask him to choose, they say it's puzzle time, which one would you like to do? And you have to teach the child this skill, right? The child is not going to right away know how to make a choice, but this is where the teaching comes. So when we teach them appropriate way of communication, this is a communication skill, correct? Being able to ask for what you want, being able to choose between the two things, but it is also a preventative strategy for behaviors. I hope you can see this. I hope you can understand all the different examples that I'm giving, how there are many ways in which we can prevent or at least reduce the occurrence of problem behaviors in the home. Okay. All right. So what are the visual strategies and supports, and why? So what is the importance of visual strategies? We can actually, visual strategies can teach positive behaviors or a new skill to a child. All right. And we'll see how that happens. It actually, visual strategy supports receptive as well as expressive communication. All right. So it's not just about behaviors. Actually, in a visual strategy, you're doing much more. You can also, visual strategies can help us teach the child, communicating expectations. So for example, you have a sign of washing hands in the bathroom. That's a visual strategy. Okay. That's telling the child what we expect from him after he goes to the bathroom. And that's not going to be placed everywhere in the house. That's only going to be placed in the bathroom. So it's contextual. So the child understands this is what is expected from me when I use the bathroom. Every time I go to the bathroom, I see this sign. I don't need an adult to be standing there telling me, हाथ धोलिए, हाथ धोलिए, हाथ धोना है कि नहीं, हाथ नहीं धोए. No, none of that. In order for us to make the child independent and not have problem behaviors, we have a way, a tool, which is a visual strategy to help, communicate our expectations to the child. This is being, this is used a lot in classrooms, as you can imagine. You have, I hope at least this is used in classrooms and schools. But this is an evidence-based strategy to have an environment that's optimal for learning as well as to prevent challenging behaviors. Because why am I focusing so much on communicating expectations? Think about it. Just think about it. If you didn't know, if you have a child who's nonverbal and he had no idea what is to be done in an environment, what is going to be the case? He may do what he thinks he wants to do. And then we will say, but this is not how you're supposed to behave in the classroom. But aisa nahi karte hain park mein jaake, or this is not how you play with the toy. Our expectations are different. The child doesn't understand because we've never taught him. So this is all about teaching. So what are we doing through visual supports and strategies? Are teaching new behaviors, new skills, new expectations, routines within an activity. If you had a visual schedule within an activity of, for example, dressing, the dressing task activity itself can be divided into many steps visually so that the child can become independent. And the more we give them the opportunity to be independent, the less problem behaviors you're going to have. The more you, run after the child to feed, there is a problem behavior there. If you have the plate or haath mein khana leke mummy bhag rahi hai and then the child is not eating or throwing up, now we have to just think about that. Just think about how could you modify that to prevent. Jo ho gaya problem behavior, wo to ho gaya. Now the child, once the child knows that this is fun and mama is going to run behind me, that behavior is going to continue. Now, how do we modify that, right? So if you have a routine, if we have a structured way to do our tasks, our daily activities of daily living, and the more independent we can give children the opportunity and exposure to be independent, the less of those problem behaviors we are going to have. There are so many skills that children can do within a routine that many times parents don't give them the exposure because they don't think that they can do this. Like, for example, simple things like cutting vegetables in the kitchen or some activity in the kitchen. You may think that he will not be able to do it. So you're not giving him the exposure. So that activity ka jo practice hai wo आएगा ही नहीं बच्चे को. And then suddenly one day we may suddenly have an expectation that the child should have a life skill. What is the life skill? That he has to, do something in the kitchen. And then the child will say, I am not doing it. Child is not used to it. The child has no teaching. The child has had no practice. And then at 15, 16, you may see resistance and the child is not going to be, and the child is going to be what? Non-compliant. You remember that category of a problem behavior. What is non-compliant is not listening to you. So all of this starts actually very early, all of these things. the younger the child is, the better it is. The more we can give this type of optimal learning environment in the home, the lesser problem behaviors we have. But again, I know things happen, and there are many times problem behaviors start cropping up because of various challenges that the child is experiencing. And for that, of course, we need to have that one-on-one with a therapist, and whether it's an OT or a behavior therapist or whatever that may be. But hopefully this all is giving you sort of a foundation in places where you maybe there's a gap in your routine or in your home that you can fill up. And hopefully you can come to that level where my hope for you is that we are able to reduce the number of challenging behaviors that your child is currently exhibiting, or in the future that they don't. Now, what are the types of schedules? Again, because I don't know all of you, and I don't know your children, and I don't know if you've tried this, I'm still going to go ahead and share. If this is repeat information for you, if you all have been using schedules, then I'm sorry, but this is just going to be a review, little bit of a review for you. If you have not, again, start typing in the chat box and say that you haven't tried this. This is something you would like to, going forward. Very briefly, types of schedules, it depends on, we use the kind of schedule depending on the child's age and the child's ability level. Okay, so for younger children, or even for older children who are concrete thinkers, where they may not have the skills yet to match pictures and identify and label pictures, then we use an object schedule. What is an object schedule? We literally put mini objects, either stick it on the wall or hand it to the child, where the child is able to see. For example, here's an example of an object schedule in a classroom where there are 3 activities this child is supposed to do, but this child is not at the picture matching level. So we use small objects for them. There's a reading, there's a coloring, there's a ball play, and then they're done. So there's a completion of that activity. So that's one type of schedule that can be used. There are photograph schedules. So that's actually like your own child's pictures you can take. You can put them in a small album. That can be a great schedule. Drawing or icon schedules, these are the schedules that you find online. I think these are usually the PECs kind of a picture, where some children relate to this well, others don't. If your child doesn't relate to a drawing schedule or an icon of a boy or a girl, then having an actual picture of the thing with the word attached to it. So if you said juice, picture of a juice with juice, that could be a good way. And for older kids and maybe children who are who are able to match pictures and everything, and it's not required for them, it could just be a written schedule that could be just written on in a notebook. It doesn't have to be something that's usually for younger children, we recommend creating schedules that can be just like go on the wall, so the child can see, maybe in the kitchen or the living area, so the child has access to seeing what after this, iske baad kahan jana hai, kya karna hai. That ability to sort of look at their day helps sort of reduce that anxiety and have prevent those challenging behaviors. So again, why are we doing schedules? This is not just for behaviors, but also for learning. It teaches the children a sense of what is coming next. It's a good learning environment. This one is for concrete learners. This is an example of a schedule for a child who is good with these kind of images. Very easy to make these because you can find things online, print them. You have to just figure out what your schedule is and how do we want to place it. And because a schedule brings predictability to your day is going to reduce problem behaviors. Okay, does that make sense? So if I were to tell you, for example, so that this session is for an hour and a half to 2 max, 6 to 8, but and then you may have planned dinner, or you may have to go somewhere, or you may have a meeting or something. You're planning your day around this session, right? If I don't tell you anything and you come for the session and we say, we'll see, it could be 2 hours, it could be 5 hours, it could be 10 hours, I could keep you here all day. How would that make you feel? That raises anxiety, doesn't it? So predictability for all humans is good. It reduces our stress levels. For us, it's our stress levels. For our children, it's problem behaviors. So when we have a completely unpredictable day, unpredictable sort of a routine, the child doesn't know what is expected when, कब क्या करना है, कहाँ जाना है, आज ये हो रहा है, कल कुछ और हो रहा है, आज मुझे you have given me something to do in the kitchen, for 10 days I don't do it. that kind of inconsistency, that kind of irregularity, unpredictability is going to cause problem behaviors. So coming back again is that when we do this, and visual schedules also is a way for a child to communicate with you. So we go back to the teaching. We are teaching the child to also communicate through these visual schedules. Again, if it's needed. If it's not needed, that's fine. If your child is a child who doesn't need visual schedules, who's fine managing their day in a regulated sort of a way, that's okay. But for most children, I find when they do have problem behaviors, this could be a part of the sort of a missing piece of the missing puzzle, you know. So that is one way. This is another way for a young child, and we always have this way of saying what is the activity that needs to be done, and it's all done. So when a child visually sees that you know, he takes the card of get dressed and puts it on all done, then he's done for that step. Then it's for the learning. It's very, very important to know I'm done with that. Now I don't have to worry about that. And I go on to the next one, brushing teeth, combing hair. It's also helpful in breaking down a task that has multiple steps. And when you teach that, then a child is going to be more likely to be compliant. Instead of just saying, now we have to go out. If the child doesn't know what are all the steps that are involved in going out, first I have to get ready, then I have to wear my socks, then I have to wear my shoes, then I have to, it's a lot of steps that we have to be able to be mindful of. And so when you have a schedule, it helps break down those steps, and that actually makes it more, makes children more compliant to following those routines and following those whatever expectations you have of them during the day. It, like I said before, it helps reduce anxiety, in the transitions, because you are communicating with the child that, you will be going to the park at 4 o'clock. I mean, it doesn't have to be time driven, but after your nap, you get to go to the park, and you do that every day. So the child knows that park is coming every day. So it's not an abstract concept for the child about, oh, I'm going to the park, but then the child doesn't know when it's going to come next, if there is no sort of a routine, right? And all of us have a routine, correct? All of you have a routine in the home. I'm sure you all follow pretty much the similar routine every day. Whatever you do from the morning till the evening must be very, very similar on most days, except maybe Saturday and Sunday, correct? So the idea is, how do we teach our children about that predictability? That is the key for sort of prevention of these challenging behaviors. This was the example I was giving. For some children, actual pictures are needed, not like, not the kind that are abstract with actual words. This helps them in matching. This helps them in identification of the what we are talking about. This is for example, I was saying the activity schedule. So within an activity also, sometimes children have problem behaviors, right? So a child may be always having problem behaviors jab usko tayar karwana hai. And that could be the thing that you're really struggling with. He just doesn't get ready, and then you're always struggling. Then usko pakad ke rakha hai, fir usko pehnaya hai. Or it could be brushing schedule routine. Maybe a lot of children are having a lot of challenging behaviors. Actually, brushing is a very good example. I should have put that as a picture here, I realize. But think about a child who is resisting brushing, who's always having temper tantrums, rona, maybe biting, when time comes for brushing. So what could be the case? We have to, like I said in the beginning, we step back and think about, okay, what is the issue here? We have to see from all the comprehensive perspective. Medical koi reason nahi hai. Is there anything going on in his gums? Is he sensitive? There is some kind of a cavity. Is there a dental issue that we have not checked out? When we figure everything else out, then we have to say, okay, maybe if we had a visual schedule of that activity broken into pictures, put it in the bathroom next to your basin, and we have to teach now. Now the teaching has to happen. Dhire dhire, the more the teaching will happen, the problem behavior will go away. Versus if we don't teach and we are, we are struggling to brush our child's teeth, somebody is holding, somebody is, muh pakda hua hai, koi brush kara raha hai, right there you have set the stage for more problem behaviors in the future. Because the more we do that, the more that behavior is going to get strengthened. And what is that behavior? The child is crying, mama is getting angry, and all of that is a vicious cycle. So we just have to step back and say, okay, is there a particular behavior I see in a particular task or an activity, and how can I address that? Is there a way I can teach my child Maybe there are steps in there that he's really struggling with. Maybe there are sensory issues, for example, in this dressing. Maybe there's something else going on that we have to figure out. And once these things are visually represented and taught step by step to the child, that kind of a problem behavior could disappear. Now, we were talking about first then, right? So first then is, we usually use this kind of an activity. It's not an activity schedule, it's a visual schedule for getting tasks done that the child typically doesn't like to do. Okay, so we have to, again, this is a teaching. We have to teach the child how to say first this, then that. Pehle aapko, first you're going to have a snack, then you get to go to the gym. Okay, so there is like there is a way to help easing with transitions as well as teaching expectations of activities. So for example, if you didn't even want to do a full visual daily schedule, which was, you know, put up in your kitchen or something, even if you had an album where you had some cards of the activities that you want to do during the day, and you just had this first हम ये इसमें 2 ही activities हम बता रहे हैं. So the expectations are very minimal for the child even to see. So we are going to do just 2 activities. हम पहले first we'll do bubbles. First we'll do reading a book, then we'll do bubbles. Let's say the child really likes to blow bubbles. So we will say हाँ पहले हम ये activity करेंगे, फिर हम ये activity करेंगे, and then push it aside. हो गया. Then bring it up again. And maybe the child likes to play with the ball. So you say first puzzle, then ball. Okay, does that make sense? So we are helping the child understand what is coming next, but it's not like a whole list of activities. Maybe if that's too much for a child, depending on, again, their age, their ability levels, their comprehension levels, whether they are verbal or not, whether they can actually look at a schedule. And if you never tried that before, you know, it takes time to learn. This can be an option to do. Okay. So I see now that we, Harshali, can I ask you to just tell me if I should spend some time on how to create a visual schedule, or should I skip?
No, you can, because many of parents must be, I mean, needing that.
I'm not seeing the chat box. So is this a new thing for them? Are they going to benefit? How do we create? Can I spend some time on this?
Yes, sure, you can, because newly diagnosed parent, yes, they're saying yes, please.
Okay, fantastic. Because I just didn't want to repeat information that they were already doing. So I'm happy. I'm happy to hear that this is going to be helpful. Okay. I just want you to know, especially for parents whose children are newly diagnosed, that this might seem too fast for you. If it does, please contact me later on, because this is something we usually spend a lot of time on. You know, like, it's not something I would do in 10 minutes. Now, I only have very limited amount of time, but I want to share this information with you. So I've tried to keep it as simple and as doable for you as you can. But what we do is with usually a visual schedule is something we develop. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to gather, first of all the materials, and we can take pictures, your own children's pictures doing activities. You can take photographs from magazines. You can go online. You can go on Google. I have I have a couple of links I'm going to share with you today, where you can go on these websites and actually download these schedule pictures. Okay, then you choose the pictures. You can create a schedule that you want. You may just want to start with a morning schedule. If that is where most of your children's problem behaviors are happening, you can say, I'm going to only focus on morning. You could do evening. You could do a full day. Oops, sorry. You could do a full day, or you could do a first then. Again, it is very difficult for me to say what kind of schedule, because I don't know your children, right? So you have to think about that. You have to basically cut all the pictures that you need for the schedule part, and you take a chart paper or a folder or a small album. If you have a small album which is very portable, you can put pictures in there, and you can take that album everywhere with the schedule. Otherwise, when you want to teach them to actually follow a schedule from top to bottom, what we usually do is we cut the pictures and we laminate them so the child cannot tear it. And back of each card, we put a Velcro, piece of Velcro. So it could be as simple as like this kind of a chart that you can put up on a wall. Basic hai, okay? And what you have to just do is say what is to be done and all done, all right? And then what happens is that each card, you just divide it up and you stick it. So you can start with like brushing, breakfast, coloring, puzzle, lunch, whatever it may be. And at the end is basically the child has to take this card and say brushing, all done. Breakfast, all done. So by the end of the day, this thing is empty. All right. Now, there are many ways in which you can do this. The whole idea is that the pictures the child has to understand the pictures. So that level you have to see. You could take, like I said, your own child's photographs and put them up, if that is the level at which they are able to understand and relate. Again, creating it, you can Velcro it, and then you have to, most importantly, so here's another example of how you can take pictures from your own phone. You don't even have to go on YouTube. The daily activities that they do, you can do that today, tomorrow, spend a few days and create your own, like a bank of photographs. And you can either, like I said, you could do like this, vertical, which is typically how we teach children, that once they start from here and they're done here, it's over. Or it could be this way. You can start and go this way, depending on how the child is scanning this thing. And usually we laminate the photographs, like I said. And basically, these are the couple of ways in which you can create, first of all, a picture schedule for your home. And what we do is, once we create the schedule, we have to now teach the child to use it. And in teaching, there are two things. I don't have enough time to go into detail about what a task analysis and what prompting is. But the idea is that we have to divide up the steps into small steps and teach the child with prompting. By prompting, initially, maybe we have to hold the child's hand and help him take that thing, the card, and say, oh, brushing, humne brushing kiya hai, point to the brushing, all done, move it. So initially hum prompt karenge, and slowly we have to reduce our prompting, so that by the end, our goal is that the child has to go on their own, point to the schedule and say, whether they say it or they're non-verbal, they have to point, and then they have to pick it up and put it on the all done side. That's our purpose. Okay? And isko we will keep it at a visible place, so that it's everyday visible. So like, that's why I said kitchen, your living room, aapka hall, dining area, wherever you feel, you can constantly go and show the child what the activities are going to be next. So first we show the child the schedule. A few days you show them, if they are able to match, if they're able to point, do all that. And then he or she has to move the picture to the finished. Or you could have a check mark kind of a thing, for older children, they could even check mark when they have done it. Now, the length of the schedule depends. Like I said, it totally depends on what you're trying to teach and how old your child is, and what their ability level is in terms of understanding. So I think initially what I recommend is just make something that doesn't have to look great or perfect. Just make something very basic. See how it works, so that you can modify it. As you start using it with your child, you can change it. So it doesn't have to be that you have to spend a lot of money or anything like that. Start simple, but start with that sort of a structure. Okay. Here are a couple of the websites that we can put it in the chat box at the end of the session. These are the ones that I have found are free. So there must be many more. If you Google, I'm sure you'll find a lot of apps nowadays where you have a paid app, and you can just, this one on the third one is the My Visual Schedule Lite, is the only one I found that was free. But if you're willing to spend some little bit of money, I think in iPads, they have that. You don't even have to do that. There are a couple of free ones. There are lots of on Google. If you search for visual schedules for children with autism in images, you'll find a lot of things that are available for free for download. But this first one particularly, this do2learn.com, is something I use a lot. They have picture cards, they have templates for visual schedules, they have a template for toilet training. So it's all visual. Okay. So you can go here, download it, print it, and create your own visual schedule if you like. So most important, I want to talk about transition, because transition is when you move from one activity to the other. Mostly it's an activity that the child really enjoys, and you're going to have to change. A lot of the problem behaviors, especially for young children, happen in this kind of a thing. Here we use timers and first then cards again. So when we use a timer, so what's really important here in the sense of teaching is that the child is having a problem behavior because he doesn't know what to expect. If you say 2 minutes, If you say ki, okay, in 5 minutes we have to go home, okay, for the child the 5 minutes could as well be 5 hours. If the child doesn't understand the concept of time, what is 5 minutes? The child thinks it's done, the child thinks it's over, and the child doesn't know he's coming back. This is where the schedule helps, of course, every day. Secondly, when we use a timer, the child is able to, we usually give them a warning. Okay, so I tell parents that before a transition where you know problem behaviors happen, you know for a fact that child every single time हम पार्क छोड़ के आते हैं तो वो रोता है, या वो जमीन पे गिर जाता है, या he starts to want to something, some behavior, then we must 5 minutes before tell the child, okay, in 5 minutes it will be time to go home and I'm going to set a timer here. Okay, जब एक timer बजेगा तब we have to go home. Now 5 minutes you give the child, it's an advanced warning system. When the timer goes off, the child will still have problems initially because the child is used to that problem behavior, and that's okay. At that point you have to just take the child home and say, yep, okay, we're going to come back tomorrow. It's all right, we're going to come back tomorrow. We're going to come back tomorrow. So expectation of what it is. And we also can have an activity of a way for the child to know that there's something really fun waiting at home. If the child is very young and he really likes to play in the playground, which he should, but he also has to go home, that's a behavioral expectation that after 1 hour or whatever, you have to go home. Dinner time, you have to go home, correct? So the timer helps. If the timer may not help immediately, the child may still show a lot of tantrums. And you have to say, okay, remember when we go home, you're going to play with the ball for 15 minutes. So you have to set up some kind of a, he can understand what he's going to expect when he goes home. There is some more fun that is going to come up, right? So that's one more way. So the first then card can be used similarly when the activities and the expectations are taught to the child. Here are some examples of timers that we use. This one particularly is a visual timer, but you don't have to go and buy anything. This could be just a timer on your app. I know there could be some free visual timer apps also on the phones nowadays, so you can explore that. But it's nice to have something where the child can see the countdown. Again, it depends on the child. For some children, this is good enough. For some children, just putting it on your phone, but giving them a pre-warning is important. Now, this kind of timer is a tool, but what we're really doing is teaching the child some waiting. The child has to learn this skill is very, very important. Telling them when a transition is about to come. So we are helping them see what is about to come. So eventually when they see the timer, they'll know, acha, this activity is about to end now. Okay, they may not know 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, but they have an understanding that when I see this thing visual, it's a visual cue, right? When I see this thing, okay, I have to go home, or whatever that transition end time is. For some children, it's leaving a shopping mall because they're having so much fun. It could be anything. It could be every time he has to go to his dadi's place and he has to come, there's a big tantrum. That's just, I'm giving an example of a tantrum. There could be other behaviors as well. But I hope you understand the point that I'm trying to make. So because children don't understand the increments of time, we have to, the visual component is very easy. It just gives them an idea of what 5 minutes looks like, because 5 minutes could literally mean 5 hours or 5 days also for a child. It's really, it makes no sense to them when we say 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Okay. So this kind of a visual, activity of a visual timer gives the child a way. We are teaching the child waiting. We are teaching the child about transitions, and this could prevent or eventually reduce the problem behaviors that you may be having right now. Same thing here again, back to, for the first then cards is, you could use this for teaching a specific skill. So like I said, simple things, first work, then play. If the child only wants to play all the time, but you want them to do some bit of coloring or some activity, you can start teaching them with a simple visual. Every day, if you do this consistently, that first we do a puzzle, then we play with blocks, or first we do this, then we do that. That helps a lot of children understand the expectations and the sort of the rules that, okay, first this, then that. This is an actual rule that we are teaching them. And this is very, very important even in the classrooms, right? And not just the home. it's a simple template. I think you can literally find this online as well, or you could even just make it on Word document. It's simple. First, then 2 cards, print it, take your pictures, put a Velcro, laminate them, and you have a first then sheet that you can put it in an album. So you carry it everywhere you go. And it's good to carry it everywhere you go, because then you always have this sort of a thing if you're teaching the child, if you've already taught him, right? That kind of a thing. Sometimes in the classrooms, at least, we use these kind of line drawings, which are behavioral expectations. So, being quiet or listening or sitting in a chair. Sometimes we use these as well. In fact, a lot of the times in the classrooms, these are used to teach children ahead of the time. So this is not, we are not doing this when the child is actually having a behavior, right? All this that I told you is to prevent. So by that, I hope you remember that we are not doing it when the child is having a problem behavior, right? We have to start setting up the environment in a way that we are always making it optimal for learning and optimal for good behaviors all the time. All right. Now we come to communication skills. Sometimes children will have challenging behaviors because they have some deficit in the communication area. By deficit, it means there are certain skills they don't have, right? So asking, wanting, like being able to tell you what I want is a very important skill, right? If I didn't have language and if I didn't have any means of telling you what I want, then I'm going to find different ways to communicate somehow, right? And those different ways could look like problem behaviors as well. That is why now we are coming to the function part of it. That is why it's important to understand what is behind this behavior. Is this behavior happening because the child lacks the skills to tell me what they want, or is it something else? So here we can think about, as a good optimal learning environment in the house, is to teach children requesting and to teach children how to make a choice. Requesting can start from very basic, from food. I want, snack, I want water, I want, and again, it's not verbal. I'm not talking only about children who are verbal. I'm talking about if you have a child who's non-verbal, it's even more important to teach them how to request. So there we use pictures, there we use, again, schedules, activity things, and we teach them to point. So instead of screaming or crying or a inappropriate behavior, we have to replace that with the appropriate behavior. What is an appropriate behavior for a child who is nonverbal but wants, let's say, a snack, is looking at 2-3 options of pictures and saying, for example, in this one, we have a choice board. This is called a choice board. Now here, we start only with 2 pictures initially. We don't go with 6 choices, because when we are teaching, we have to go step by step. But let us say the child is non-verbal but can make a choice because we have taught them. So instead of screaming, he would go to that and pick out the card of bubble blower and stick it here. So then you would say, oh, I want bubble blower. All right, here is a bubble blower. You can play with it. Or we start, that's why usually when we do this, we start with teaching with food, because it's the most, it gives you the most gratification. It's instantaneous and it's a life skill. Being able to ask for something, especially when you're hungry, when you're tired, when you're sleepy, is a core life skill, correct? So we start with this, and this can be done with visuals as well, and making a choice. Both the things sort of go hand in hand. We start to teach requesting. It could be one thing. I want apple, I want banana, I want water, I want milk, I want ice cream. And then eventually those wants can put into a choice board, and then the child will say, out of the 6 things that I love today, right now, I want a banana. It's like that. I hope you get I'm just giving you a very sort of high level, overview of how this functions and how this works. Okay, so now we will spend some time on addressing challenging behaviors. Here, I want to mainly, I want you to walk away with the message of what a function of a behavior is, because like I said, once there is a challenging behavior and we want to understand it, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of data collection. So it's not something we just do. Like, it's not that if you came to me today that I could just listen to you and say, oh, here are 5 things you can do for the kid. I mean, there may be some overall things I could tell you, but specifically for the behavior, you have to first define the behavior. That means we have to be specific about what it is. Then we measure the behavior. That means we understand the frequency how many times it happens, the duration, how long it happens, the intensity, how intense is the behavior. So we start collecting data like that with a particular behavior to come to an understanding of what is the function. So then we have to come to a hypothesis. Hypothesis meaning, okay, if there are 5 reasons why a behavior can happen, what is this particular child doing with this particular behavior? Okay, that's our sort of bottom line. Once we understand that, then we come to a strategy. So I want you to just at least have the fundamental information about what this is. This is called, first we do an ABC data understanding, which is called antecedent behavior consequences. There we understand the function of the behavior. Then I'll show you the list, the functions of the behaviors that there can be. And then we talk a little bit about reinforcers and reinforcement, and why it's important in prevention of challenging behaviors as well as management of challenging behaviors. So here are the 3 ABCs. I'm pretty sure most of you are aware of this, or may have actually even used this kind of a thing with your children. But there is an ABC data analysis that we sort of start off with, and data analysis starts off with observation. So first we have to really, if I were to be there with the child, I first observe the child or over a period of time and understand when that behavior happens. So what is the behavior and what happens before? So antecedent means anything that is happening before the behavior. Consequences, anything that happens after the behavior. So let's say the behavior was the child is hitting his own head is the behavior, and we have to really define it. Where does the behavior happen? How many times? All that duration, frequency, and all I talked about. Then we start looking at the antecedents. So antecedents meaning will be what happened before the behavior, with whom did the behavior happen, where did the behavior happen. All of that understanding has to happen कि behavior के पहले क्या हुआ था. It's not just about the behavior, right? Because it's happening in a context, it's happening in an environment. So we have to understand the antecedent. And then we talk about behavior के बाद में क्या होता है. So what do the adults or the siblings or the teachers do once this behavior happens? Let's say the child is hitting himself. What is the consequence? Maybe somebody stops his hands, maybe somebody yells at him, किसी situation में उसको हाथ पकड़ लिए जाते हैं, किसी situation में पता नहीं क्या consequences होते हैं. We have to know what those consequences are. And then we start to think about what are the possible functions. Functions of the behavior are, I'll just share in a minute. But this is very important for me to share with you that this is the overall framework with which we understand a behavior. But this is not something that happens in like 10 minutes. This takes time, this takes effort, and this takes observation on the part of the adult. Where they can really pay attention to all the little things that are not visible right away. Right away, हमें सिर्फ behavior दिखता है ना? We first of all just say कि oh, he started hitting himself, or he was biting himself, or he started hitting other children in the classroom. But then we have to stop and say, okay, where did that happen in the classroom? Who all were with him? How many children were there? Was a teacher there or not? Then what happened before that, just before that? अगर वो math का time था, तो उसके पहले कौन सा class था? What happened? Was there a transition? You see how many things we have to consider. And then we say, okay, after that, what happened? Was he sent out of the class? Was as a punishment? Did the teacher yell at him in front of everybody? And then what happens? So this kind of understanding takes time. But these are overall, I'll just very briefly touch on the sort of functions that are out there for most behaviors. Now you have to understand that one behavior can have one function today, and after 3 months, it could have a completely different function. So it's not something that's like a prescription. It's not key. If a child is, hitting somebody, and I say he's doing it for attention, that 3 months later, bhi uska wahi reason hoga. It totally depends on the child. So this is why it's important for us to observe and observe and observe and really understand, okay, what is behind this? What is behind this? The function is nothing but purpose. What is the purpose of this behavior? Why is he doing this? One purpose is tangible gain. Tangible gain means wanting a desired object or outcome. So agar kuch chahiye hai bacche ko, it could be a thing or an outcome. An outcome could be wanting to go to the mall, could be a tangible gain also. Wanting a particular toy is also a tangible gain. Kuch chahna, kuch tangible cheez chahiye hai bacche ko. that could be a reason why some of the behaviors could happen. That could be behind a behavior. Attention, wanting attention. So whether a child gets attention, it could be positive, which is praise. Attention is positive and negative. Negative attention is what? Yelling, screaming. किसी भी type का attention पाने के लिए children can actually engage in problem behaviors. So it could be even when a parent goes to a child who's having problem behaviors, don't do that. Actually, that can also be positive if the function is attention. If all the child wanted was to get the parents' attention, तो parent आके प्यार करे या डांटे, वो attention मिल गया ना. So we have to know if a particular behavior is driven by wanting attention, then उसके जो strategies होंगे वो बदल जाएंगे. I'm sure you are able to understand how the strategies will change depending on the function of the behavior. Escape is a function. Escaping a task or a situation or an activity is a very big reason of a lot of children having problem behaviors. So it could be because the activity is more difficult for the child, or it could be some other reason, but there is an escape element. The child doesn't want to do this particular activity or be here in this particular place. So the escape can be a function. Sensory is a very big function of, it could be a very big function of behaviors where there could be a child who has some kind of a sensory sensitivity or something that is not addressed in the environment, and that could lead to problem behaviors. A child I worked with who had a lot of problem behaviors in general, but his problem behaviors were particularly triggered by sound sensitivity because he was extremely hypersensitive to sound. So he would always have his hands on his ears. And then in the classroom, in the school, sometimes when the bell would ring, it would trigger him. So there was a specific kind of behavior that would, when he would cry and scream and run in the classroom. So we knew that that particular behavior had to do with sensory issues. So not all behaviors that he was exhibiting were sensory, but that particular one was. So if we don't know that, and we don't understand that there's a sensory need behind this behavior, why maybe the child is screaming or crying or trying to bite himself, then the strategies are not going to work. Right? For sensory, we have to address the sensory part. There you have to take help of the occupational therapist and make sure that that particular need is addressed. Finally, communication. This we talked about a little bit, is that not having enough communication skills to share with you what the child is feeling or what they want or what they want to do could be a function. This is why when I shared in the prevention, I talked about teaching communication skills. It's very important, because if some of the behaviors ka function ye hai, and the minute you start teaching communication, what will happen to those behaviors? They'll start to reduce. Correct? Okay. So now, strategies for managing behaviors. Now, strategies for managing behaviors are also very similar. They all start with the prevention part that I have already mentioned, which is a structured environment, positive reinforcement. We'll talk about that now. Teaching a child to take breaks, appropriate breaks when they're overwhelmed with their sensory input being too much. Teaching them transition support, visual supports, sensory strategies totally depends on the child and what their needs are. And finally, a behavior support plan has to be in place. A behavior support plan has to be done by a therapist who's trained. They do it based on observation and good data collection. And what they do is an ABC data analysis. They understand the function of the behavior. And once you know the function of the behavior, the strategies sort of come out of that. You know, without knowing the function of the behavior, it's like, कहते हैं ना हवा में तीर मारने वाला बात है कि अरे ये भी कर सकते हैं वो भी कर सकते हैं. If you don't know why the child is doing a behavior, then any kind of strategy is not going to work. That's very, very important to know. All right. So I think this one I'll skip here, but it's really, we go through a detailed process of observation, data collection, and then ABC data writing. So these are very minor examples, but I just want you to see how what the function might be and what kind of a strategy could be used for this. So for example, if a child, the behavior is child gets up and screams and yells. Okay, this is all the parent is telling me, let us assume, and these are very simple examples I've brought for you. That he just screams, he's always screaming, he's screaming. And let's say that I understand that the child was really not engaged in any activity. So the antecedent is that it was probably close to snack time. Mom is in the kitchen busy and the child is really not engaged. And this is around the time that he is screaming, crying. And mom comes from the kitchen, quickly gives him a snack because she knows it's snack time, and he becomes quiet. So as it's obvious for you, the function here is what? Tangible, right? He wanted a snack. But why is it a problem behavior? Is because we have not taught him and now that we understand that he is exhibiting these behaviors because he is unable to communicate to the parent what he or she wants, that tangible gain jo usko chahiye hai. So what do? We teach him an appropriate way to request for snacks and food. So we start teaching with I want, with the choice board. We start teaching him pointing. We start teaching him a picture exchange. Or the child, if he's using words, we talk about using words. But simply, very, very simple example hai ye. I'm just making it very simple so you can really understand this at the fundamental level. Okay. So here we have seen, oh, tangible tha, it's very obvious. But what happens is that even though we understand sometimes that he wants something, उसको बताना नहीं आ रहा है, तो इसलिए वो चिल्लाता है. But we are not teaching the child communication skills. So the communication skills teaching becomes your problem behavior solving strategy, which I talked about this whole session, right? Second example. मान लीजिए the behavior is that the child is like always getting out of his chair in the class और इधर उधर बच्चों के साथ बात कर रहा है. So हमने देख लिया कि okay, this is the behavior, and let's say the antecedent हमने देखा कि टीचर ने बोला असाइनमेंट कंप्लीट करो. ठीक है, असाइनमेंट कंप्लीट करो बोलते बराबर वो उठता है और उधर उधर दूसरे बच्चों के साथ बात करने लगता है. What is the consequence? The teacher punishes him by asking him to leave the class. वो बोलती है कि तुम बहुत नॉटी हो, तुम सुनते नहीं हो मेरी बात, चलो निकल जाओ बाहर, तुम सबको डिस्टर्ब कर रहे हो, बाहर निकलो. अब अगर उसका, आप समझ रहे हैं कि उसका फंक्शन एस्केप है, वो एस्केप ही करना चाहता है उस असाइनमेंट से. क्यों? पॉसिबली अभी क्योंकि हाइपोथेटिकल, आई एम जस्ट इमेजिनिंग, मे बी द असाइनमेंट वाज डिफिकल्ट फॉर हिम. द मिनट द टीचर गेव हिम एन असाइनमेंट दैट ही कुडंट डू, he decided to leave because he knows that if he leaves he will be kicked out of the classroom. Works for him, right? So the more he does that, the more he will be kicked out, the more the behavior will continue, and the more the child will continue to exhibit in that kind of a problem behavior of non-compliance. अब उसका अगर फंक्शन बिहेवियर एस्केप है तो हमें क्या करना है? अगर हमें वो समझ आता है, if we understand that it's because the assignment is difficult, because for us to understand this we would have to do a lot of antecedent observation to say कौन सी क्लास में उठता है, कौन सी टीचर के साथ उठता है, कौन सा सब्जेक्ट है, क्या उसके लिए मुश्किल है, क्या उसके लिए आसान है, does he know the subject, does he know the fundamentals? We have to do all that. So let's say we assumed and understood, okay, no, we didn't assume, we understood that this was a difficult assignment. Now the strategy is that we have to make the assignment shorter to work with the child's ability, and then we have to ensure that he completes that activity, even if he's throwing that. So the consequence cannot be that you get out of the class. The consequence is you finish the assignment. You may need prompts. The teacher may have to give him prompting, but he has to complete the assignment. Then the behavior goes away. Correct? I hope you're seeing how the function is connected to what we do at the end of it. Last example. The example is that there's a child who's in a wheelchair who's always grabbing people, मतलब खींच रहा है लोगों को, पकड़ रहा है लोगों को, right? And we say that the antecedent is that the minute the teacher or any adult comes into the classroom, he or she does this. And what happens is that a staff member always says, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. ये उनका consequence है, और कोई consequence नहीं है. तो क्या होगा? हमें समझ आ रहा है कि हो सकता है the attention is the function, that the child wants to have a connection and interaction with the adult. Maybe the child is alone. Maybe the children have all gone out to the playground and this child is alone. Maybe the child is non-verbal. Again, these are all imaginations. So we are just imagining a scenario that what is the function is attention. So how do we help the child? We have to teach him appropriate ways of communication. So grabbing is a problem behavior. You can hurt someone, and that's not the appropriate way to gain somebody's attention. So how do we say? We have to teach communication skills. We have to teach him to say hello. We have to maybe teach him to say, come play with me. You have to maybe, if the child doesn't have words, maybe he points to a game and says, I want to play with you with the board game, something like that. So if we don't understand the function, what's behind any kind of a behavior, then we cannot say that we can come up with strategies. So one is we design our home or our classrooms and our environments in a way that it's optimal for learning. So the challenging behaviors will happen at the least amount, correct? किसी का भी घर अगर optimally designed हो in the home, and by design I don't mean physical design, I mean a learning design with visuals and supports and expectations and rules and schedule. If all of that is there, then your chances of having problem behaviors reduce. And then if you have the understanding of what is a function of a behavior, then when a behavior happens, maybe you can understand that and work with it. And if you can't, then you do need a therapist, right? You do need an actual someone coming into your home and observing your child and what are the issues happening and what's going on and what are the ABCs, and because it really takes a lot of understanding, time and training to do all that. So it cannot be just done in an hour. It needs time. A couple of things I want to talk about before we wrap up today is that we also like to, there is also a lot of evidence on using reinforcers to strengthen the behaviors we want to see. So good behaviors, the behaviors that are appropriate. Reinforcement means what? Anything that strengthens and makes something more durable and long lasting. So these are some of these we call social praises, right? So clapping, cheering, giving high five, hug or a pat on the back or thumbs up, giving praise or having a chance to have a special activity. All these are reinforcers that we use, again, based on the child's age and their interest level. For younger children, and especially when we're teaching them something in the beginning, like teaching communication skills, we could start with edibles. Like edibles are usually good because they're instantaneous and the child makes a connection that I like this. But eventually this is where we want to be, that every time we see this is called catching the child in a good behavior. Every time we see the child exhibiting a good behavior, we have to reinforce them. We have to provide that reinforcement. Only then they'll make a understanding na, ki this is appropriate behavior, this is not. What happens oftentimes is that we forget to reinforce the child's good behaviors, but we only pay attention to the problem behaviors. Is it not? He's just doing this, he's doing that, and in the problem behaviors, you may be giving them all kinds of attention. Ki mat karo, aisa nahi karte, marte nahi, khade nahi hona, jump nahi karna, whatever the behavior may be. But while the child is exhibiting appropriate behaviors, while the child is in a good learning environment, doing well, we have to remember to also reinforce and strengthen good behaviors. So then that sort of balances out, your prevention and actual addressing of the problem behaviors. And these things have to happen every time the child shows you something, they've done something well, give high five, show them like that you mean it, that that they have done something well. It could be finishing a task, it could be finishing an activity, it could be coming back. Let's say after 2 months, 2 weeks or 3 weeks of you trying the timer in the park and playground, one day child doesn't cry and comes home, you have to give him positive reinforcement, because if you forget, you will lose that teaching opportunity, right? And the child doesn't show as much of resistance and has understood, showing you that he's understood, acha, ab ghar jana hai, and he doesn't cry. You have to do something so that that reinforcement strengthens that behavior, and the child gets it. Oh, I really got a big hug from Papa when I didn't cry. It's that internal dialogue I'm imagining in a child's head. So that has to be clear, that has to be made clear. So we can't assume that the child is going to understand that we are happy and proud of them. Make sure they know that. Use those reinforcers, and they could be any kinds of reinforcers. We even use, like we call reward systems. Reward systems means we use sticker charts. Okay, chote bachon ke liye stickers are very fun. We have to teach them new skills or behaviors ko track karne ke liye we use, like you could identify one good behavior you want to see in them, and every time the child exhibits that, put it on a sticker chart, create a chart, put it there, say, hey, good job, today you came home so well from the park, it was awesome. 4-5 बार जब वो करता है, उसको कुछ स्पेशल एक्टिविटी हो या घुमाने ले गए या एक्स्ट्रा टाइम इन द प्लेग्राउंड, some way to reward the child. We use things like daily chores, the daily activities that we should be including for our children, because they are the core life skills. And what happens is that whether it's for younger children or older children, it doesn't really matter. You have to identify what can they do well, because those are the things we want to strengthen in them. Those are the behaviors. So it could be like starting from making your own bed to setting the table for meals, cleaning up the table after meals, washing vegetables, cutting vegetables, dusting, watering plants, sorting laundry, folding clothes, cleaning up the toys at the end of the day. It's a million things you can do in the home that would be teaching the child the behaviors that would lead to their independence, of course, but also is giving them a sense of independence. And so in the chore chart, this is very simple. This is on Word. I think I made it Word document, so you don't have to buy anything or anything. Just print and start using it. You could have a couple of chores here, like every day the child, depending on the child's age, of course, and their ability level, like their job is to set the table and water the plants. Let us say these are the two things you pick for them, and you put them here, and every time he does it, he gets a sticker. This is a visual cue for the child to know, oh, this was a good thing I did, this was something I'm being appreciated for, right? And at the end of the week, he's gotten all the stickers. That's great. You could plan something special for him, or together as a family, something like that. So these are some of the things that I wanted to really share with you in this very little time that we have, because this is such a topic that cannot ever be done. But I hope that I have given you enough of the basics and enough of the sort of ways to think about prevention and setting up your home environment in an optimal way. So here are some of the strategies that we talked about today. Now, as I said, I don't know you or your children and their ages, their abilities, and what challenges you might be facing, but you have to see this, and you have to see if some of these strategies could be applicable to you in your family. Warning before transitions, we talked about giving choices. These are all teaching. You have to teach them if they don't know this yet. The importance of positive reinforcement, rules, reminder of rules first, then, and a visual schedule and daily routine sort of go hand in hand. But these were all the things that we talked about today, and I think there are a lot. I think that you could start thinking about where you are struggling right now with which behavior, and see what might be the first good step for you to start. It could be starting a visual schedule. It could be just the first then cards. It could be just the giving choices. Anything you can think about, start small, but do it with consistency. That's the thing that I'm going to repeat again and again, because something that we do once is not going to stick for the child or their behavior, particularly when it is a behavior that we are trying to understand and address and reduce. Then consistency is absolutely the key. We cannot not do it with consistency. Unfortunately, it takes up a lot of our time as parents, and energy and effort. And I understand that all of you must be stressed, because challenging behaviors can be very stressful. I have worked with a lot of children in the US who had challenging behaviors, and I know firsthand how stressful it can be and how it can deplete you. And so for you, I know as a parent, having to work with the child all day, every day, must be exhausting. But you have to remember that your emotional state, how you feel, how you are dealing with their challenging behaviors, will actually affect how well you can understand the behavior and address it. So in some ways, I think I always talk about this focus on you as a parent, the self-care part, which is oftentimes ignored because parents are so busy with the child and the job and all the things that we are all worried about and busy with. But when it comes to, I want to connect this self-care to challenging behaviors. When it comes to your child's challenging behaviors, I know, and you must acknowledge that you are under tremendous stress. Unless you handle the stress, learn to regulate your own stress, it is going to impact your child first, right? Because it becomes a vicious cycle. When you don't have the tools to regulate how you're feeling, how maybe scared you are, or upset you are, or angry you get, you may yell at your child, you may get angry with your child, and the child is likely not going to understand that. When you are yelling, there's no teaching. I hope you get that, right? There is no teaching in yelling. There is no teaching at all. What is happening if you yell and scream and have those kinds of emotions? The behavior may stop for a little bit because the child may be scared, but the child is not understanding what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. So for all this stuff that I talked about today, the teaching, how we have to teach our children to behave in the appropriate ways, I think you have to also take care of your own emotional health. Otherwise, you're missing out on that sort of the golden opportunity of teaching the child when the behaviors are happening, or the prevention of the behaviors, because it takes up a lot of your emotional bandwidth, correct? And I always use this example of the oxygen mask in the planes, that they say for when if the oxygen mask comes down in the plane, they say that always put it on yourself first before putting it on the other person next to you, correct? If you remember, this is what they say. And that applies to parents so significantly that I actually have this in every single PowerPoint, the self-care bit. And I actually even teach once a month with SNCC. I do a session on emotional health and self-care and ways to, breathing and how do we reduce stress in our own bodies. Because why am I saying this is because when parents feel stressed out, and when parents are alone and feel isolated, especially as it relates to behaviors, because I know behaviors can be exhausting, is that it actually will impact your ability to connect with your child and understand your child and understand your child's behaviors, and it becomes a vicious cycle of the child not really knowing what to do and you not knowing what to do with the child. So while you do all the strategies that I talked about, I do hope that you will take the time to figure out your own support systems, whether it's joining a parent group or you're starting a parent group or you're part of a parent group. Take advantage of the parents who are around you who may have gone through this, taking your family support if you can, or friend support if you need to. But it's important that punishing, again, I'm going to go back to the first slide that we started off with, is that punishing a behavior is not going to teach the child anything. So if you are punishing in whatever form, whether even being angry and yelling, we are not teaching the child. It's nothing. We've lost the chance, the opportunity to teach the child to learn something new, to learn an appropriate behavior. So for that, I keep sort of focusing on this part. And to summarize, I think we learned today that each behavior has a communicative function. Every behavior, no child behaves for no reason. They don't behave just because they want to be mean. They don't behave because they want to make you angry, or they don't behave because they just want to misbehave. There is a reason. We have to understand that, right? We have learned few strategies that can be used to prevent challenging behaviors. We've talked a little bit about the importance of reinforcement and how that can help in management as well as prevention of challenging behaviors, or good skills for the child. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to each one of you for being here today. This is all my information. You can save it. My email, my WhatsApp number, my website. I think I'd be more than happy to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you, actually. Like I was saying, it's very difficult to cover a lot of content in this, but I'm sincerely hoping that I was able to, give you some basic understanding and knowledge of prevention of challenging behaviors in the home. Thank you so much.
Yes, you have given a lot of information, and lot of information that is helpful. I mean, I can see the chat box is flooded with
Oh, I didn't even see that. Okay.
yes. That's a lot of information. And yes.
Was everybody able to save my contact information? I hope so.
We can share. I've already shared in groups also, no problem.
Great.
Yeah. So I think we have short of time to take questions, or you want to go for one or two questions that you have?
One or two questions, yeah.
Yeah, so parents, okay, one hand is raised, so I'll just ask. Pawan Bure sir, you can unmute and ask generalized questions, please, not the very specific one.
Okay, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Thank you so much for my question.
Yes.
Actually, we have one 26 years adult with autism.
Okay.
Difficulties with communication skills.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly he getting angry and he can't say if 3 articles be there. I observed last 1 month only. So he's suddenly getting his running, pushing, pulling. He have little bit hyperactive. I want to say a little bit his anxiety, but he have only 3 triggers. Maybe I observe when he want to go toilet and when he want to eat something, and when he feel bored.
Hmm.
So I want to ask to you how to go. I have 10 years experience, but I know just your
Yeah.
advice. Yes, ma'am.
Definitely. So one thing I can ask you is, do you have any communication, visual communication things in place for
Uh,
him?
this is not available still, ma'am. But I can arrange it still. I will tell to our director.
I think
So
what would be most important. So I'm assuming, is he non-verbal?
yes, ma'am. He is non-verbal.
So what I would suggest as a first good step is to set up some kind of a visual communication protocol for him, where you can teach him to request, communicate on basic things. Okay. So it doesn't have to be like 15 things. You could start with 2 or 3 things, but you have to really teach him to be able to ask, whether it's asking for help, asking for break, asking for toilet, asking for food, asking for an activity. Now, if he does not have any mechanisms of communicating with you on these basics, then that is why the triggers are there, no? Because he doesn't have a appropriate way of communication, correct? Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
exactly that. That is
would
there.
recommend that if you started with taking some of his pictures or doing certain things, or even pictures that you find on the internet that he can understand, and teach him, start training him on some of these basic communication needs. These are his needs. If his basic needs are he's not able to tell you, then he's found a different way of telling you. He's communicating, right? But he's just communicating through behaviors that seem to be inappropriate. So what is then important is to teach him the right way of communication. And right way of communication is, that's why that whole section, I hope you were, like maybe taking notes and stuff, is teaching him some basic communication skills. I think that is where I would start with visuals. So with visuals. Do you understand that, Pavanji?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks. If you had any other questions, you can start trying this. If you have any other questions, you feel free to reach out to me. All right. There's an internet problem there. Huh?
Yeah, yes. I think next Mukesh Gupta, sir, you can go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. This is Mahima, not Mukesh. Ma'am, my
Okay.
son on a visual schedule, even he is able to write his schedule by himself. He is 7.5 years old. My problem is that he is totally dependent on schedule. If other than schedule something happened, because we cannot predict everything all the time, दैट मोमेंट उसको मैनेज करना डिफिकल्ट हो रहा होता है, तो मैं उसको फ्लेक्सिबल कैसे बनाऊं, लिटिल फ्लेक्सिबल कैसे बनाऊं?
That's a very good point, because yes, while the visual schedules can be very, very helpful to a lot of children, some children can also get sort of stuck with it because they like that sameness, and they sort of become rigid, is what I'm hearing you say, with his interest.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
you have to gradually start to change one activity at a time. And activity ko aap, like don't take it off the calendar completely. Maybe put it after 2-3. Like agar unka kuch, let's say he does a game. Let's say he plays a game at a certain time. Let's say after lunch is his game time. तो उसको
Okay.
आप 2-3 एक्टिविटीज के बाद टुवर्ड द एंड डाल दीजिए, like stretch it out, like put it in the visual schedule still, so he can see that it's coming up, but it may not be coming exactly at the time that he's used to. And there you may initially have he will have challenges because he's already not flexible with that. I think there you can also try. So one could be that, one could be stretching it out. The second could be the first then card. You can change an activity and try the first then approach. Have you tried that?
Yeah, I'm already using, and he understands very well first and then. My issue is not like that कि he is rigid with the schedule. I'm saying कि whatever written in schedule he will follow. But suddenly if मुझे चेंज करना पड़ा शेड्यूल में, तो वो उसके लिए रेडी नहीं होता है. सडनली मुझे कहीं बाहर जाना पड़ा और उसके शेड्यूल में लिखा हुआ है कि ईटिंग टाइम, तो ही वांट्स ईटिंग, वो सडनली मेरे साथ जाने को रेडी नहीं होता. मैं ये बोलना चाह रही हूँ, आई मेक हिम फ्लेक्सिबल इन दैट वे कि कोई भी चीज कभी भी मैं लिखती हूँ, ही इज एक्सेप्ट दैट. बट पॉइंट इज
ड्यूरिंग द डे एक्सेप्ट कर लेता है वो द विजुअल.
हाँ, उसका कुछ कुछ प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, लेकिन उसका जैसे अभी उसका म्यूजिक टाइम है और सडनली मुझे डॉक्टर के जाना है, तो वो फिर मेरे साथ नहीं जाएगा, बिकॉज ही विल आस्क फॉर म्यूजिक ओनली. तो आई एम सेइंग कि उस समय मैं तो स्विच कैसे करूं?
So this is also part of that, behavior training where we have to really understand. It's very difficult for me to give an answer immediately. But I think if you would like to contact me, I'd like to talk to you about it a little bit more in detail.
Okay. No problem, ma'am. I will contact with you.
Thank you so much, because this is one of the things that we can struggle with. And I see Brian is smiling. I think Brian has some experience with this. Would you like to share?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, it is a every day in and day out situation for us, having 2 kids on the spectrum. So we have always both of our hands filled in, like, expecting always the unexpected. No matter how much you be ready, there's always sudden challenges which always will be there. So we try to inculcate various changes, all of a sudden changes. Like for example, we are always used to having electricity in the house. Okay, certain things we experience. One fine day there was no power across Maharashtra.
Okay.
All of a sudden, kids got into a meltdown because they are not used to without fan or without power.
Yes.
So we introduce that element, that maybe once in a fortnight or twice in a fortnight, switch off all the lights.
Oh, that's
At
interesting.
least half an hour.
So preparing them. Okay.
Preparing them, because see, there are certain things what we don't look forward to and which can happen.
Correct.
So these are certain things, Even for example, my daughter, she likes the sound of the air conditioner, even if the AC is not working.
Okay.
So we need to, regulate them in such a way that now since in lockdown, I can't even get a person to service the aircon.
Correct.
So we need to prepare them in such situations, that maybe some service person may not be available. So create difficulties in our life every day, so that our kids get prepared to those difficulties, so that we don't invite a unseen enemy, we call it, for example, the corona.
Yeah.
So
Well,
this is what is a bit of a sharing,
Thank you so much for that. It was a very interesting insight, Brian. Thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, when you have time, just try to change the schedule that time. I mean, when we are in urgency, you cannot do that. So make them like change the schedule when you have ample of time, then suddenly break that schedule itself. Sometimes I did that. I mean, my experience, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Please share, Harshali.
Yeah, so then they get bit flexible in that.
Yeah.
Okay, we have the schedule, but okay, ये हो रहा है. So they'll show the tantrums, but that time you have that time to handle those tantrums. Suddenly, I mean, nothing like जाना भी है, tantrum भी handle करना है, ऐसा नहीं होगा. Yeah, so we'll move to the next question. Daya, you can unmute. I think last question we can take. Shivani ma'am has next session lined up. Yeah, so
I can do 3 minutes actually.
Yeah, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. My question is how to work on escape behaviors, ma'am. Like my child, ma'am, whenever I take a cup of milk, he just removes the pant and goes to pee in the bathroom, ma'am. For any smoothies or any milk, food-related items, ma'am, if I give him, which he doesn't like.
Achha. So, no, but you have to, have you done a proper thorough analysis of the behavior? Like, for sure it's an escape behavior?
Yeah, ma'am. Every time I get a cup of milk, he escapes in the bathroom, ma'am.
And do you go after him?
No, he comes back to me, ma'am, later.
And what happens after is what I meant. Because what I want to know is he doing it for attention? Again, I don't know. I can't really jump to any sort of conclusions. But are you sure that it's an escape behavior? It could also be something else. So I think one thing I would suggest is to, after today's session, probably do a thorough sort of an ABC on that behavior. What happens before, like write down as much detail as you can, understand as much as you can, not just that you got the cup of the doodh or whatever, pura an antecedent, and then what happens afterwards. So observe it for a week and see what you find. If the pattern emerges still that it's escape, then that's different. But I wonder if there could be another function at play here. How old is your child?
5 years old, ma'am, non-verbal.
5 years old. So what is it when he likes to throw it in the bathroom, or what does he like to do? What, like, I'm saying that there is probably you need to do a very thorough, detailed analysis of that behavior. And then if you find out what that is, you contact me and I'll help you work through the strategies. Because
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it is escape, and it's difficult to say that
I'm
if
just assuming it, ma'am, to be escape, but it's not escape. I'm just assuming it.
वही मैं कह रही हूँ कि हम assume कर रहे हैं because he runs to the bathroom and throws. No, but wait a minute. What if he enjoys the pouring of the water? What if he enjoys the attention he gets later on? Because I don't know what happens, right? So what if there is some kind of an attention element इसीलिए कर रहा है, or is it some kind of a sensory seeking behavior? It could be escape very well. I don't know, but I think don't assume. You can't assume a function. You have to do the proper analysis to understand, because we are not assuming anything. When we do a ABC analysis, we are understanding the behavior, because assumptions में तो हम कुछ भी assume कर सकते हैं, right? So go back for 4-5 days, see the behavior, understand the behavior, and try to get a pattern out of 4-5 days of when he's doing that. And then you may say that, wait a minute, it was not escape at all. And you will only figure out what the strategy could be.
No, ma'am, you have to decide. I'll give you the full data, ma'am. You decide whether it is what type of behavior, because we are not into details of the behaviors, ma'am. We
But you have
just
to do the analysis with detail, okay?
Yeah, we can do the analysis in detail, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll get back to you, ma'am. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, you can contact her personally. Posted. You can reach out to her.
Thank you.
I think we can stop here, because Bam has to go, and she already shared a wonderful and a very detailed information already. So thank you so much, Shivani ma'am. Thank you so much. I mean, I cannot thank you more than that.
No, this is absolutely my pleasure. It's so wonderful to see so many parents here on the screen, and I thank each one of you for being here today. It's not easy to take the time out of your day, 2 hours, to sit and really want to learn. So I thank all of you for being here, and thanks to you, Harshali, for inviting me.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Brian. You are sharing your tips. I mean, those are seriously helpful for the parents.
Yes.
So much for being there. I mean, he's also very good. I mean, support of SNCC.
Yes, if I can just quickly, before I go, share that if the parents here, I spoke to Brian for the first time today, and I have just seen all of the videos on their YouTube channel. If you parents have not gone on his YouTube channel, you must. Everything that Brian does is evidence-based, okay? I told him that everything that he's doing in his videos is what I try to teach parents. In fact, I'm going to be using his examples of his children in my training sessions going forward, because they're excellent work you're doing, Brian, you and your wife. And so for the parents who have not seen his channel or not familiar with how they are showcasing their children's journey in the home, whether it's in the kitchen routines or, everything is fantastic. So please go ahead and, check them out, their entire family.
Yes. Seriously, I mean, very dedicatedly they are working, and very helpful for parents.
Well, thank you very much. As we always say, it's a long journey, which has always had its ups and downs, and there's a lot of way ahead also, with a lot of ups and downs. But we always try to share whatever we can. So probably certain mistakes that probably we made earlier, maybe we can be in a better position to share with the younger parents. So that the early intervention is the key, and probably if we share our insights at an early stage, we can come out of things faster. And then also when we share, the good things what our kids can also do, it shows a lot of light. It shares a lot of hope among like-minded parents that we shouldn't be just negative. There are good things in life, and then there's no point, see, tantrums, meltdowns always going to be a part and parcel of our life. And we as a Rodriguez family, what we say is there are some good days and there are not so good days. So look at the good days and move on, and life will always be good ahead. So that is the way we look at things, and do things as a family together. We parents, like, the mother, father can be the perfect role models for our children, and no other therapy can be, no other person can do as much as we ourselves can do at home. Our kids can do wonders. That's all, a small bit of sharing from my end, man.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah. Brian, you can share your YouTube channel's name and I will post it in groups also, but just everybody's asking.
Okay, surely, ma'am. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, doctor. Nice speaking to you. Like, after so long we got connected.
Same here. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye and good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you all. Bye. Good night.